Hello again. You can allow your attention to drift and wander wherever it feels most comfortable. And as it wanders, it might just happen to find a gentle, unfolding story about a kingdom that decided to do things a little differently. It's a story that begins not with the clash of swords, but with the heavy, patient footsteps of women walking through the tall, whispering grasses of West Africa, a long, long time ago. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And as always, if you feel so inclined, you can let me know in the comments where in the world you're listening from, and what time it is for you there. It's a quiet way of knowing we're all here in this space together, under different stars. Alright. Let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing. And together, let's allow the story to begin. Your world for now is small and safe. It smells of damp, red earth after a sudden rain of wood smoke from cooking fires, and the sweet, starchy scent of pounded yams. You live in a kingdom called Dahomey, a place of tall grasses, dense forests, and powerful spirits. Your life follows the rhythm of the seasons. You plant, you harvest, you listen to the elders tell stories by the fire. It's a life of patterns, a life you understand, but there are stories that are more than just stories. They are whispers of a different kind of life, whispers of the GBE too. You've never seen one up close, but you know who they are. Everyone does. They are the king's elephant hunters, and they are all women. You see them sometimes from a distance, returning to the capital city of Agojie. They don't walk like other women. They move with a quiet economy of motion, their shoulders broad beneath their simple cotton wraps. They carry massive, heavy-bladed spears and long-barreled muskets that look impossibly heavy. They are silent, their faces unreadable, but their presence is as loud as a thunderclap. The ivory they carry back, great curved tusks gleaming in the sun, makes the kingdom wealthy. It is the king's ivory, and they are the only ones trusted, the only ones skilled enough to bring it to him. Because, let's be honest, hunting an elephant is not exactly a low-stakes hobby, especially with the technology of the 17th century. These aren't just hunters, they are a royal institution. A small, elite cadre of no more than a few dozen women at a time, chosen for their incredible strength, their purely striking skills, and a certain fearlessness that sets them apart. They spend weeks, sometimes months, deep in the bush, living off the land, tracking the great beasts that no man dares to hunt alone. They understand the forest's secrets, the language of broken twigs and faint tracks in the dust. Almost mythical. Historians still debate precisely when and why this all began. The exact origin of the GBE is a story lost to time, a classic case of historical records being a bit shy on the details. Some argue it was born of pure necessity, that perhaps in a time of great conflict, the men were away at war, and the vital task of the elephant hunt fell to the women who remained. Others suggest it was a calculated political move by an early, clever king named Agojie. By creating a group of female hunters loyal only to him, he established a power base that existed entirely outside the traditional male clan structures. It was a brilliant way to centralize his own authority. Whatever the reason, it worked. You watch them pass, and you feel a strange mix of awe and a kind of distant fear. They are women of your kingdom, but they are not like you. They have stepped outside the familiar patterns of life, outside the roles of wife and mother, to become something else entirely, something wilder, something more dangerous. Lately, the stories the elders tell have a new urgency. The kingdom is growing. Its ambitions are growing. The new king Agojie is a man with fire in his eyes. He looks at the kingdoms around him not as neighbors, but as future parts of his own domain. Conquest requires soldiers. It requires a bigger, more disciplined army than Dahomey has ever known. And one evening, as the sun bleeds orange and purple across the sky, you hear a new sound in the distance. It's not the rhythmic pounding of yams or the laughter of children. It's the sound of marching, dozens and dozens of feet, striking the earth in perfect, unified rhythm. The king has been watching his elephant hunters, his fearless GBE2. He has seen their discipline, their loyalty, their effectiveness. He thinks, why stop at hunting elephants? The idea spreads through the villages like a dry season fire, a rumor carried on the hot wind. The king is expanding his personal guard, not with men from the noble families, not with prisoners of war, but with women. Young women, strong women, recruited from every corner of the kingdom. It's an unbelievable thought, a disruption to the very rhythm of the world you know. The men are the world you know. The men are the warriors. The women tend the fields, run the households, raise the children. But the king's word is law, and his recruiters are now a common sight. They aren't soldiers, not yet. They are older women from the palace, their faces commander praising, their eyes missing nothing. They watch the girls at the market, noting who carries the heaviest water pots without complaint. They observe the young women in the fields, seeing who can swing a hoe from sunup to sundown without tiring. They are looking for a certain kind of strength, a resilience that is more than just muscle. One afternoon they come to your village. You are with the other young women, grinding millet, the steady, hypnotic rhythm of the pestle in the mortar, a familiar comfort. The palace women approach, and a hush falls over the compound. They walk among you, their gaze lingering on one girl then another. Their eyes pass over you, you feel a strange flutteriosity. They stop in front of a girl from a neighboring family. She is tall, strong, known for her quick wit. The palace woman speaks, her voice quiet but carrying an undeniable weight of authority. She isn't asking. She is informing the girl's father that his daughter has been chosen for the king's service. It is a tremendous honor, she says. The family will be favored. They will receive gifts, status. The girl will live in the palace, a life of privilege. She uses the word honor, but everyone understands the unspoken truth. This is not an offer you can refuse. The king does not request, he commands. You watch the girl's face, a complex mask of pride, shock, and a deep, bottomless well of fear. Her life, the one she had imagined for herself, marriage, a family of her own, the familiar patterns, has just been erased. A new, terrifying, and uncertain path has been laid before her. Your own life is not without its hardships. Perhaps your family is poor, struggling to pay the annual tribute to the king. Perhaps you were deemed difficult or insubordinate, a young woman with too sharp a tongue or a spirit that chafed against the strict rules of village life. For many, this recruitment is not just an honor, it's a solution. Some families willingly offer up their daughters, hoping to gain favor or to unburden themselves of another mouth to feed. Historians often point out this complex social dynamic for a woman in Dahomey with few other options. A life in the army was a legitimate path to power, wealth, and a level of autonomy unimaginable for her peers. It was a strange kind of freedom bought at a very high price. There's another, stranger category of recruits you hear about in whispers. Women who are there to be corrected. If a husband found his wife to be too argumentative or disobedient, he could, in theory, complain to the king. The king might then decide that a few years of harsh military discipline would be the perfect cure. It's a bizarre historical footnote, the idea of an army doubling as a kind of royal reform school. Scholars still argue about how common this practice actually was, or if it was more of a threat used to keep households in line. Was it a genuine policy, or just a really effective bit of propaganda? The palace women finish their selection. Your village is quiet after they leave. The family of the chosen girl begins a subdued, formal process of saying goodbye. It's not like a wedding where a daughter leaves one family to join another. This is different. This is a departure for a world from which you will likely never fully return. You lie on your sleeping mat that night, listening to the familiar sounds of the village settling down. The crickets, the distant call of a night bird, the soft murmur of your family's breathing. But your mind is racing. You think of the girl who was chosen. You try to imagine her future. But all you can conjure is a vague image of high palace walls and the glint of a spear. For the first time, you consider the possibility that the familiar patterns of your own life are not as certain as you once believed. The king's new army is not just a story anymore. It is a real and powerful force, a tide that is rising, and it has just pulled one of your own into its depths. You press your hand against the cool earth, and you wonder, with a shiver that has nothing to do with the night air, if that tide will ever reach you. The tide does reach you, whether it's through a formal selection, a family decision born of hardship, or a circumstance you never saw coming. The day arrives. You are told to gather your few belongings, an extra wrap of cloth, the small wooden doll your mother carved for you, little more. The goodbyes are brief, choked with things left unsaid. There is pride in your father's eyes, but it is shadowed by a deep and profound worry. Your mother presses a small pouch of dried herbs into your hand, a familiar scent of home that feels impossibly precious now. You walk away from your village, joining a small group of other girls, all of you wrapped in a shared, unspoken bewilderment. The path to the capital, Agojie, is dusty and long. With every step, the familiar sounds of your village fade, replaced by the rhythmic scuff of your own bare feet on the red earth. Agojie is unlike anything you have ever seen. It's a sprawling city, a labyrinth of high, reddish-brown mud brick walls. These aren't just the simple walls of a family compound. These are immense, thick, and imposing. They seem to swallow the sky. The main palace complex, the Agojie, is the heart of it all, a city within a city. You are led towards a specific gate, one that looks no different from the others, but it feels different. The air around it is heavy with significance. This is the entrance to the world of the Agojie, the king's wives, the name given to all women who served within the palace walls, whether they were soldiers, administrators, or actual royal partners. At the gate, you are met by older women, veterans by the look of them. Their faces are like maps of hard-won battles, their gaze is direct and uncompromising. One of them steps forward. She doesn't ask for your name. Instead, she gives you a new one. It's a name that signifies your new life, often something fierce or symbolic, like Fireheart or She Who Conquers. Your old name, the one your mother whispered to you as a baby, is taken from you. It belongs to the girl you used to be, the girl who no longer exists. Historians see this as a classic to love institutional indoctrination, seen in military and monastic traditions all over the world. By stripping away your personal identity, they begin the process of building a new collective one. You are told to leave your belongings behind, everything, the spare cloth, the protective herbs, the little wooden doll. You hesitate for a moment, your fingers clutching the smooth, familiar wood of the doll. It is the last piece of your childhood, the last tangible link to your family. The veteran's eyes soften for just a fraction of a second, a flicker of understanding, before hardening again. She says, her voice not unkind, but absolute, that the king is your family now. You place the doll on the growing pile with the other things. You are now a blank slate. You step through the gate, and the world changes. The noise and bustle of the city fall away, muffled by the thick walls. Inside is a vast, sprawling complex of courtyards, residences, and training grounds. It is a world populated almost entirely by women. Thousands of them. You see women weaving cloth, women cooking in vast kitchens, women carrying messages, and everywhere you see women training. In one courtyard, a group practices with long spears, their movements synchronized and deadly. In another, the sharp crack of musketry echoes off the walls. It's overwhelming, a self-contained universe with its own rules, its own hierarchies, its own language of command and obedience. You quickly learn the most fundamental truth of this place: no man is allowed to enter after dark, except for the king himself. Even during the day, the only men you see are a handful of eunuchs who serve as administrators and guards. The palace is a sanctuary, a fortress, a place where the king's power is nurtured and protected. And that power, he has decided, is female. This creates an environment of intense focus and, frankly, keeps things simple. It removes the complications of flirtation, romance, and the rivalries that might arise between male and female soldiers. One of the strangest details you notice is the sound that precedes any man who does have official business inside the walls during the day. A palace official walking through the courtyards is always accompanied by an attendant ringing a small, sharp-toned bell. This is a warning. At the sound of the bell, you and every other woman in the vicinity must avert your gaze, turning away so that you do not even accidentally look upon the man. The penalty for looking is severe, constant reminder of your new status. You are set apart. You belong to the king, and your focus is to be directed only toward him and your duties. It's a form of social control that is both subtle and incredibly effective. You and the other new recruits are led to a simple barrack-like building that will be your new home. It's clean, functional, and utterly devoid of personal touches. That night, lying on a woven mat that is not your own, surrounded by the soft breathing of strangers who are now your sisters, the full weight of your new reality settles upon you. You are inside the palace of no return. You are inside the palace of no return. You have left your entire world behind to enter a new one. Nothing but the body you inhabit and the spirit within it. And tomorrow they will begin the work of reshaping them both. The sun rises hot and fast the next morning, but the routine begins even before the first light touches the top of the high palace walls. You are shaken awake not by a gentle call, but by the sharp, authoritative voice of a training officer, an older woman with muscles like coiled rope and eyes that seem to see right through you. There is no time for slow waking, no moment to linger in the hazy world between sleep and consciousness. Your new life is one of immediacy, of instant obedience. You are led to a large, open courtyard where hundreds of other recruits are already assembling in neat, silent rows. The air is cool and still. For the first time, you see the full scope of the king's ambition. Girls from dozens of villages, speaking different dialects, from different family clans, are all standing here together, a sea of anxious, determined faces. An imposing woman, clearly a high-ranking commander, stands before you all. She doesn't shout, her voice is calm measured, but it cuts through the morning air with an intensity that makes you stand straighter. She begins to explain the rules of your existence. She says you are no longer daughters of farmers or fishermen. You are now Agojie, wives of the king. A ripple of confusion and doubt passes through the recruits. You look at the girls around you. Wives. You had heard the term, of course, but the reality of it is staggering. The king is a semi-divine figure, a man of immense power, the leopard among men. To be his wife is the highest honor imaginable. But the commander quickly clarifies. This is not a marriage of romance or companionship in the way you understand it. It is a vow of absolute, a spiritual and political bond that ties you directly to the throne. She explains the implications. As Agojie, you are celibate. You will not marry another man. You will not have children. Your body, your strength, your entire life is now consecrated to the service of the king and the kingdom. To break this vow, to be with another man, is not just an act of infidelity. It is an act of treason against the state, punishable by death for both you and the man involved. This stark reality hangs in the air, a heavy, unreachable wall around your new identity. This concept is fascinating to historians. Was this a religious vow, a practical military rule, or a form of political control? The answer, most likely, is all three. Religiously, it elevated you to a sacred status, making you untouchable and dedicating your life force to the king's spiritual power. Practically, it was brilliant military strategy. An army without husbands and children is an army without domestic distractions, without the fear of leaving orphans behind, without divided loyalties. It creates a single-minded fighting force. Politically, it made you a powerful, independent class of women, an elite group whose status and survival were tied directly and exclusively to the king. You weren't dependent on a husband's clan or a father's influence. You were dependent only on the monarch. Then there is the bell. The commander points towards the main palace gate. She explains that when the king walks, you do not look. When his ministers walk, a bell will ring. You do not look. Your eyes are for your weapon, for your sisters, and for the enemy. That is all. The rule you learned on your first day is reinforced with chilling finality. Your senses, your very attention, are now subject to military discipline. You learn that your new status affords you incredible privileges outside the palace walls. When you eventually leave the palace on official duties, fully trained and in uniform, you will be preceded by a young girl ringing a bell. This bell serves the opposite purpose of the one inside the palace. It is a warning to everyone else to get out of your way. Men must move off the path, avert their eyes, and show deference, to even accidentally touch you, is a grave offense. You, a girl from a small village, will command more respect and fear on the open road than a wealthy merchant or a clan elder. You have been elevated above the normal social order. You have power, but here in this dusty courtyard, you have none. You are a recruit, the lowest of the low. The commander finishes her speech by outlining the brutal reality of the days to come. She says, her voice flat, devoid of sympathy, that many of you will fail. You will find the training too hard, the pain too great. You will wish you were back in your mother's house. Those who fail will be given other duties in the palace. You will cook, you will clean, you will clean, you will serve. But you will not be soldiers. Only the strongest, the fastest, the most ruthless will earn the right to fight for the king. She turns and walks away, leaving her words to settle over you like a shroud. The promise of power is intoxicating. The threat of failure is terrifying. You look at your hands, the hands that used to grind millet, and you wonder if they are capable of holding a weapon, of taking a life. You have been offered a new identity, Agojie, king's wife, soldier. But it is not a gift. It is a challenge. And the price of that challenge is everything you have ever been. The days that follow blur into a grueling routine, a relentless cycle of exhaustion and effort that seems designed to break you down to your very foundation. Before you can be built into a soldier, you must be unmade as a girl. And the first step in that process is to give you a new skin. You are led to a storehouse, a cavernous, earth-walled room that smells of cotton, leather, and metal. Here you receive your uniform. It's not a symbol of glory, not yet. It's a tool. You are handed a simple, knee-length tunic of coarse, blue and white striped cotton, and a pair of short trousers to wear underneath. The design is starkly functional, a far cry from the colorful wrap cloths worn by the other women of the kingdom. This garment is designed for movement, for running, for fighting. It erases the shape of your body, turning your individual form into a uniform silhouette, one of many. You are also given a cap, a small pointed headdress. Later, you will learn that the specific design and insignia on these caps will signify your rank and your unit, a visual language of the army's internal structure. For now, it's just another piece of your new identity. Putting it on feels strange, formal. You look at the other recruits, all dressed identically, and you see yourself reflected in them. The girl from the hills, the girl from the fishing village, the girl from the city market, they are all gone. In their place is a single, unified image, the recruit. This uniformity was a key part of building a cohesive fighting force. European observers at the time were often struck by the disciplined, almost androgynous appearance of the soldiers. By minimizing traditional markers of femininity, the uniform helped to create a new, third gender in a way, that of the warrior. It was a visual declaration that you were no longer operating under the normal rules of society. Then, you are given your first weapon. It is not the fearsome musket or the gleaming blade you saw the veterans carry. It is something much simpler, and in its own way, much more humbling. You are handed a club, a heavy, dense piece of wood, smooth from use, balanced for a brutal swing. For weeks, this club will be your constant companion. You will learn its weight, its balance, how it feels in your hand. You will practice drills from sunrise to sunset, swinging it at wooden posts wrapped in tough vines, your shoulders and arms screaming in protest. The training officers walk the lines, their voices sharp, correcting your stance, your grip, your follow-through. A weak swing, a moment of hesitation, earns you a sharp rap on the shins with a cane. Pain, you learn, is just another form of instruction. And then comes the blade. One morning, you enter the training yard to find rows and rows of them laid out on woven mats. They are not swords in the European sense. They are heavy, single-edged machetes with a broad, slightly curved blade that widens near the tip. It's a tool designed for chopping, for hacking, for clearing the thick brush of the jungle. In your hands, it is to become a weapon of terrifying efficiency. Lifting it for the first time is a shock. It's heavier than you imagined, the balance point awkward. Your first swings are clumsy, slow. The veterans who instruct you move with a fluid, deadly grace that seems impossible to emulate. They show you the basic stances, the blocks, the devastating cuts. It is a brutal, intimate form of fighting. This is not a weapon for keeping an enemy at a distance. This is for close, desperate work. A peculiar and much debated part of this early training involves a strange ritual of psychological conditioning. Recruits were sometimes made to swing their blades at gourds filled with red dye or animal blood to accustom them to the sight and feel of a successful strike. Some historical accounts, mostly from European sources, claim this went even further, with recruits being forced to execute prisoners to prove their courage. Modern historians are deeply divided on this. Many argue these stories were exaggerated by colonial writers to paint the Dahomean army as savage and barbaric, justifying their own colonial ambitions. Others believe that, while perhaps not a universal practice, such brutal tests of loyalty and nerve might have been used for the most elite units. The truth, as is so often the case, is likely somewhere in the murky middle. For you, the training is less about ground, bloody tests and more about agonizing repetition. Your hands, once soft, become a mass of calluses and blisters. The muscles in your arms and back ache with a fire that never seems to fade. Every evening, you collapse onto your mat, too tired to even dream, your body all landscape of pain. But slowly, imperceptibly at first, something changes. The club starts to feel like an extension of your arm. The heavy blade begins to move with more purpose, more speed. You learn to anticipate its momentum, to use its weight to your advantage. You are not just weaving a new skin of cotton and linen, you are weaving a new skin of muscle and scar tissue. You are being remade, molecule by molecule, swing by swing. You are being forged, and the fire is hotter than you ever could have imagined. Just when you think your body has reached its absolute limit, that you cannot possibly endure another day of swinging a heavy club, the real training begins. The commanders have worked on your upper body, building the strength in your arms and shoulders. Now, they will test your foundation, your legs, your feet, your will. One morning before the sun has even risen, you and the other recruits are marched out of the palace gates. Not to the familiar training yard, but towards the open country, towards the vast, rolling plains of tall grass and scattered, thorny acacia trees that surround Dahomey. The air is surprisingly cold, and the ground is damp with dew. You walk in silence, the only sound the rhythmic tread of hundreds of bare feet on the earth. You stop at the edge of a vast, formidable field. The ground is not smooth earth. It is a dense, tangled mat of thorny bushes and razor-sharp grasses. But what truly catches your eye, and sends a cold spike of fear through your gut, are the acacia thorns. They are everywhere. Long, white, needle-sharp daggers, littered across the ground like a carpet of death, dropped from the gnarled trees that dot the landscape. The training officer, a woman with a face that seems carved from granite, explains the day's exercise. It is simple. You will run. You will run from this side of the field to the other, a distance of several hundred yards, barefoot, through the thorns. A wave of disbelief washes over the recruits. This is impossible. It's not a test of strength or skill. It's a trial of pure, unadulterated pain. It is madness. A few girls start to cry silently. Others stare at the field, their faces pale with terror. You look down at your own feet, at the soft soles that have carried you your entire life, and you cannot imagine forcing them into that nightmare landscape. The officer sees the fear in your eyes. She doesn't offer words of encouragement. She offers a challenge. She offers a challenge. She barks that the king does not need soldiers with soft feet. The enemy will not lay down mats for you in battle. You will learn to ignore pain. You will learn that your body is a tool, and your will is its master. There is no choice. With a collective cry that is part battle shout and part sob, you surge forward. The first few steps are a shocking agony. The thorns pierce your skin, sharp, stabbing pains that shoot up your legs. Your mind screams at you to stop, to retreat, to do anything to escape this torture. But you can't. To your left and right, your sisters are running. their faces contorted in masks of pain and determination. The officers run alongside the group. Their voices are constant, roaring stimulus, yelling at you to keep up, to ignore the burning in your feet. You stumble, catching yourself before you fall. You see a girl go down, her cry swallowed by the sounds of the running crowd. An officer hauls her to her feet and shoves her forward, screaming in her face. There is no sympathy here. There is only the goal the other side of the field. This brutal form of endurance training was well documented by observers. It was a calculated method of desensitization. The goal was to fold first, to toughen the soles of the feet until they were like thick leather, making you a more effective and mobile soldier in a world without combat boots. Second, and more importantly, it was a psychological trial by fire. It taught you to disconnect from pain, to continue functioning when every nerve in your body is screaming for relief. It forged a mental armor just as important as any physical skill. The exact nature and frequency of this training is, of course, a subject of some historical discussion. Was this a one-time initiation rite or a regular part of the training regimen? The sources, often sensationalized European accounts, differ. Some describe it as a yearly event, part of a larger festival. Others imply it was a standard drill. What is undisputed is that it, or something very much like it, happened. It was part of the alchemy that turned farm girls into killing machines. You keep running. Your world narrows to the next step, and the one after that. The individual stabs of pain begin to merge into a single, throbbing fire in the soles of your feet. You start to breathe in a strange rhythm, a guttural gasp that matches the pounding of your feet. You are no longer thinking. You are just moving. You are just moving. Your body is an engine, and the fuel is pure will. Finally, you reach the other side. You collapse onto the softer ground, your chest heaving, your feet a bloody, unrecognizable mess. You look back across the field and see the trail you left, a path of trampled thorns and spots of reed on the dark earth. Around you, the other girls are in similar states, some weeping with pain and relief, others staring into space, their eyes wide with shock. The officers show you how to pull the largest thorns from your feet. They give you a poultice of green herbs that soothes the burning a little, but the pain remains immense. You will not be able to walk properly for days. But you did it. You crossed the field. You faced an impossible task and you forced your body to obey your will. As you limp back to the palace, leaning on one of your new sisters for support, you feel a strange sense of pride blooming amidst the agony. The pain in your feet is excruciating, but it is a known thing. You are beginning to understand. They are not just teaching you how to fight. They are teaching you how to endure, and in the wars to come, that may be the most important lesson of all. The pain in your feet eventually subsides into a dull, constant ache, and the skin on your soles begins to grow back tougher, thicker, a permanent record of the ordeal you survived. Just as the memory of the thorn field starts to fade, your training intensifies, shifting back to the weapon that will define you, the blade. The simple, clumsy swings with the heavy machete are a thing of the past. Now you must learn its song. The training yard becomes a blur of motion, a place where the air hums with the sound of steel. Your instructors are veterans of past campaigns, women whose fluid movements are both beautiful and terrifying to watch. They don't just swing the blade, they dance with it. Your day is divided into grueling sessions. The morning begins with hours of repetitive drills, what the instructors call the alphabet of the blade. You practice the 7 fundamental cuts, over and over, until the movements are burned into your muscle memory. The high cut, aimed at the neck. The low sweep, for the legs. The quick, brutal thrust. Each movement has a name, a purpose, a specific counter. You practice in long, synchronized lines. The swish of 100 blades cutting through the air in unison, creating a hypnotic, menacing rhythm. Your wrists ache, your shoulders burn. But the commands are relentless, telling you to go again, faster, to put your body into it, reminding you that the blade is not a toy but your soul. In the afternoon, you move on to partner drills. You are paired with another recruit, armed with a wooden practice blade, and tasked with running through attack and defense sequences. This is where the theory becomes terrifyingly real. A moment's hesitation, a clumsy parry, and you feel the hard thud of wood against your ribs or your forearms. Bruises become a part of your daily existence, a colorful, painful tapestry that maps your mistakes. You learn that fighting with the blade is not about strength alone. It's about leverage, footwork, and deception. It's about using your opponent's momentum against them. The instructors, often smaller, older women, can disarm you with a flick of the wrist, their movements so fast and precise you barely see them happen. They teach you to be explosive, to burst from a standstill into a flurry of attacks that overwhelms an enemy before they even have time to react. This emphasis on lightning fast, aggressive assault would become a hallmark of the Dahomean army, a tactic designed to create shock and panic. One of the more peculiar skills you are taught is how to use the blade to decapitate an opponent swiftly. This wasn't just about killing, it was a crucial part of Dahomean military and ritual culture. In battle, taking a head was the ultimate proof of a kill. It was a trophy, a symbol of your prowess that you would bring back to the king. Warriors were rewarded based on the number of captives and heads they took. This created a powerful, if grim, incentive system. Historians debate the psychological impact of this practice. Some argue it was a key factor in the army's fearsome reputation, a deliberate tool of psychological warfare. Others point out that within the context of Dahomey and beliefs about the spirit and the afterlife, it had a much deeper ritual significance that is often misunderstood by outside observers. For you, it is simply a grim necessity of the job you are being trained for. Learning the precise angle and application of force needed for a clean cut. Amidst the brutality, there is a strange artistry to it all. The commanders teach you the war dance's complex, rhythmic movements that are both a form of physical conditioning and a way to build group cohesion. You move together, a single organism of muscle and steel, your blades flashing in the sun. The dancers tell the stories of past battles, of great heroes, of the Leopard King. They are a living history of your people, and you are becoming a part of that story. You learn to care for your weapon as if it were a part of your own body. You spend the evening sharpening the edge with smooth stones until it can shave the hair from your arm. You are the blade to protect it from rust, polishing the dark metal until it shines. Your machete is no longer just a piece of iron. It is your partner, your protector, the tool through which your will is expressed. One evening after a particularly grueling session of sparring, you sit with the girl who has been your training partner all week. Her arm is swollen where you struck her too hard. Your own ribs are a symphony of purple and blue. You don't speak for a long time. You just share a small bowl of watery stew, the silence comfortable. Then, she looks at your blade, gleaming in the light of the cooking fire. She makes a simple statement of fact, that you're getting faster. You look at her blade and reply that she is too. It is the highest compliment you can offer each other. You are no longer just recruits. You are beginning to hear the song of the blade in your own blood, a sharp, clear and dangerous melody. Just as your body becomes accustomed to the intimate, brutal dance of the blade, a new sound enters the training yard, a sound that rattles your bones and makes the air smell of sulfur and smoke. It is the sound of the musket. You have seen these weapons before, of course, in the hands of the king's male guards and the elite GBE2 hunters. They are long, heavy, and imposing. But to be handed one to feel its dense, wooden stock and its cold iron barrel in your own hands is a different experience entirely. It feels alien, a clumsy and unwieldy beast compared to the familiar balance of your blade. Your instructors are women from the Army's Rifle Corps, the Gulohen too. They are notoriously stern and disciplined, and they have no patience for fear or hesitation. Your first lessons are not in firing the weapon, but in respecting it. You learn to handle it with meticulous care, to keep it clean, to understand its simple but unforgiving mechanics. You spend days practicing the loading sequence, a complex, multi-step ballet that you must be able to perform under unimaginable pressure. You take a paper tube containing a lead ball and a measure of black powder. You bite the end off with your teeth, a gesture that soon becomes second nature, the bitter taste of gunpowder a constant presence in your mouth. You pour a small amount of powder into the priming pan of the flintlock mechanism. You close the pan. You pour the rest of the powder down the long barrel, followed by the lead ball and the paper wadding. You pull out the long ramrod from its housing beneath the barrel and drum the charge all the way down. Then, and only then, are you ready to fire. It's a slow, painstaking process. In the heat of battle, a skilled soldier might be able to get off 2, maybe 3 shots in a minute. This is a fact that shapes the entire philosophy of Dahomean warfare. Your volley of fire is meant to be a single, terrifying thunderclap, a shockwave to break the enemy's charge. After that first volley, the real fight, the one with blades and clubs, would begin. Finally, the day comes when you fire the weapon for the first time. You stand in a long line with the other recruits, your heart hammering against your ribs. You go through the loading sequence, your hands fumbling, your mind racing to remember each step. The commander walks the line, her eyes inspecting every detail. The commander bellows the command to aim. You raise the heavy musket to your shoulder. It's awkward, heavier than you expect. You try to sight down the long, crude barrel at the target, a painted wooden silhouette 100 paces away. Then comes the command to fire. You flinch as you pull the trigger. There is a flash of sparks, a cloud of acrid, white smoke, and then a deafening roar that kicks the musket back into your shoulder with the force of a punch. The blow is staggering, and you stumble backward, your shoulder screaming in protest. The smoke is so thick you can't see anything. The air is filled with the sound of coughing and the sharp ringing in your ears. You have no idea if you hit the target. It doesn't matter. The first shot is not about accuracy. It is about conquering your fear. Fear of the recoil, fear of the fire-spitting monster in your hands. Many recruits develop a permanent flinch, closing their eyes right before they pull the trigger, a fatal mistake in battle. Your training is designed to beat this instinct out of you, to make the roar and the kick of the musket as familiar as your own heartbeat. Interestingly, the muskets you use are a hodgepodge of different models and origins. The Kingdom of Dahomey was a major player in the Atlantic trade, and firearms were a key commodity. Kings would trade captives, palm oil, and ivory with European merchants for guns, gunpowder, and textiles. This means your armory is a collection of muskets, English brown pieces, Dutch pieces, some new, some decades old and poorly maintained. This lack of standardization was a logistical nightmare. Historians still puzzle over how the army managed to supply and repair such a wide variety of weapons. It speaks to a remarkable level of battlefield pragmatism and ingenuity. You spend week after week on the firing range. Your shoulder becomes a permanent, deep purple bruise. The taste of gunpowder is always on your tongue. You learn to lean into the recoil, to hold the weapon steady, to reload without thinking, your hands performing the familiar ballet on pure instinct. You learn to fire in volleys, the command to fire passed down the line so that 100 guns go off in a single, devastating wave of sound and lead. One afternoon, after a long session of firing drills, the smoke clears, and you see that your shot has struck the wooden target in the chest. A small dark hole in the wood. It's a simple thing, but it feels like a monumental victory. It is no longer an alien beast, it is a tool. A loud, smoky, and incredibly powerful tool. You are still more comfortable with the familiar weight of the blade in your hand, but you are no longer afraid of the fire spitter. You are learning to tame it. You are learning to command its thunder. The training is a crucible, designed to melt you down and recast you in the image of a warrior. The heat, the pressure, the constant hammering of discipline, it's enough to shatter anyone. And yet, in the cracks that form under this immense strain, something unexpected begins to grow. It is the bond of sisterhood, a fierce, protective loyalty to the women who endure this trial alongside you. This bond isn't forged in moments of quiet conversation or shared laughter. There is little time for that. It's forged in shared misery, in the silent language of survival. It's the hand that helps you to your feet after you stumble on a run. It's the extra strip of cloth someone gives you to bind a bleeding blister without being asked. It's the look of shared understanding that passes between you and your sparring partner after a session that leaves you both bruised and breathless. You are organized into units, small groups of women who train together, eat together, and sleep side by side in the long, sparse barracks. You learn each other's rhythms, the way one girl grinds her teeth in her sleep, the quiet way another prays to her ancestors before a difficult drill. You learn to read the subtle shifts in each other's posture, to know who is reaching their breaking point and who is a reserve of strength to share. Your training officers, these terrifyingly harsh women, deliberately foster this dynamic. They punish the group for the failure of an individual. If one recruit is too slow on a march, you will have to run extra laps. If one of you fumbles the loading sequence for the musket, you all have to practice until your hands are raw. It's a cruel but effective tactic. It teaches you that you are responsible for each other. Her failure is your failure. You cease to be a collection of individuals and begin to move as one entity. One of the most powerful bonding rituals is the singing. War songs are a constant presence in your life. You sing while you march, the rhythmic chants helping you keep a steady pace. Your voice is rising as one to chase away the exhaustion. You sing while you drill, the melodies turning brutal exercises into a synchronized dance. These aren't gentle lullabies. They are songs of defiance, of strength, of loyalty to the king and to each other. They tell the stories of your predecessors, the legendary deeds of the first GBE2, the victories of King Agojie. Singing these songs, your voice blending with hundreds of others, you feel a sense of power, a feeling of belonging to something vast and indomitable. There are even unique traditions that develop within this all-female society. European visitors were often fascinated and a little scandalized by the practice of senior warriors taking younger recruits as wives. This is a subject of much academic debate, and it's crucial to understand it wasn't about romance in the modern sense. It was a formal mentorship system. A veteran would take a new recruit under her wing, providing her with guidance, protection, and support. The younger soldier would show her husband respect and loyalty. These relationships, sometimes sealed with formal ceremonies, created powerful networks of alliance and support within the army. They were a way of building family in a place where traditional family had been left behind. You experienced this firsthand. There is an older recruit in your unit, a girl who was chosen a season before you. Her name is Femi, and she is quiet but observant. She sees you struggling to master a difficult parry with the blade, the one that always leaves your left side exposed. After the official training is over for the day, she takes you aside. Without a word, she picks up a wooden practice sword and runs the drill with you, again and again, showing you how to shift your weight, how to turn your wrist just so. She stays with you until the last light has faded from the sky, until you finally get it right. She expects nothing in return. She does it because your weakness is her weakness, and your strength is her strength. That night, as you lie on your mat, the bruises on your ribs aching from the day's sparring, you don't feel alone. You are surrounded by the soft breathing of the other women in your unit. They are the ones who have seen you at your weakest, who have shared your pain, who have pushed you to be stronger. They are your new clan, your new family, bound not by blood, but by shared scars and a common, terrifying purpose. The palace walls that once felt like a prison now feel like the boundaries of a strange and powerful new home. And these women, these sisters of the blade and the musket, are its heart. As you grow stronger and more skilled, the vast and intricate structure of the army begins to reveal itself to you. You realize you are not just being trained to be a generic soldier. You are being assessed, your strengths and weaknesses catalogued, to determine where you will fit within this complex military machine. The army is not a monolith, it is a body with many different arms, each with a specialized and deadly function. At the very top, the pinnacle of the army, are the elephant hunters, the GBE2. You see them only occasionally, as they spend most of their time in the deep wilderness or close to the king. They are the oldest and most respected of all the female warrior groups. Though their numbers are small, their prestige is immense. To be a GBE2 is to be a living legend. They are the roots from which this entire army has grown. The bulk of the army, and the branch you are most likely to join, is the infantry. But even this is divided into specialized regiments. You spend more time on the firing range, your accuracy with the musket steadily improving. Perhaps you will be chosen for the Gulo Hentu, the rifle women. They are the ones who form the front lines in a major battle, trained to deliver that devastating opening volley that shatters the enemy's morale. They are disciplined, steady, and drilled to near perfection in the slow art of reloading under fire, or perhaps your true talent lies with the blade. If you are exceptionally fast, aggressive, and fearless in close quarters, You might be selected for the Nike-Huntu, the Reapers. These are the shock troops. Their primary weapon is the heavy machete, and their role is to charge in after the initial volley, to turn a disorganized enemy retreat into a complete rout. They are the most feared of all the regiments, known for their terrifying war cries and their brutal efficiency. Then there is a third major group, one that combines both ranged and melee skills. These are the huntresses, the Go-Hen-Tu. While the GBE to hunt elephants for the king, the Go-Hen to hunt men for the army. They are skilled archers as well as spear fighters, often deployed as skirmishers and scouts. They move on the flanks of the main army, harassing the enemy, picking off targets of opportunity, and sowing chaos. They are the eyes and ears of the force, their skills in tracking and stealth honed to a razor's edge. The command structure is as rigid and clear as any army in the world. Each regiment has its own commanders, senior officers who have risen through the ranks through a combination of skill, bravery. Above them are generals, each commanding a wing of the army, the left, the right, and the center. These positions were incredibly powerful, making their holders some of the most influential people in the entire kingdom, male or female. This created a fascinating parallel government in some ways. Dahomey had its male ministers and generals, but it also had a complete, parallel hierarchy of female officials and commanders within the palace, creating a unique system of checks and balances. Historians still marvel at the complexity and efficiency of this organized tribal levy. It was a state-run, professionally trained standing army, with clear hierarchies, specialized units, and a sophisticated command and control system. How this evolved is a topic of ongoing study. Was it modeled on European armies they had observed, or was it a purely indigenous development, a response to the specific military challenges of the region? The consensus is that it was likely a hybrid, blending traditional West African military organization with innovations inspired by new technologies like the musket. You and the other recruits begin to speculate on your futures. You watch the different regiments as they train in separate courtyards, each with its own distinct culture. The riflewomen are stoic and silent, their movements precise and economical. The Reapers are loud, their training punctuated by fierce yells and ritualized boasts. The huntresses are quiet in a different way, their movements lithe and almost invisible, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. You excel with the musket. The recoil no longer bothers you, and your reloading sequence is smooth and fast. But there is a fire in you that loves the chaos of the sparring yard, the visceral thrill of blade against blade. You don't know where they will place you. You are simply a piece on the king's game board, and you are slowly being carved into the shape you were destined to hold. One afternoon, a high-ranking commander, the general of the right wing, observes your training group. She is a tall, imposing woman with a network of fine scars on her forearms. She walks along the firing line as you practice, her gaze sharp and critical. She stops behind you, watching as you load, aim, and fire. You hit your target. She says nothing, but she nods, a quick, almost imperceptible gesture. Then she moves on. Later that day, your training officer tells you that you have been assigned. You will join the riflewomen, the Go-Hen-Tu. A wave of pride and relief washes over you. You have a place, you have a purpose. You are no longer just a recruit. You are a component of the great machine. You are a riflewoman of Dahomey. Now that you are part of a specific regiment, the focus of your training sharpens, becoming more intense and in some ways more disturbing. You have proven you can endure pain and follow orders. Now you must be conditioned for the brutal reality of what you will be asked to do to take a human life without hesitation. This phase of your education is centered on what the commanders call insensitivity. The lessons are both practical and psychological. You are made to participate in the ritual slaughter of animals for the palace feasts. At first, your hands tremble as you hold the knife. The act feels profane, a violation. But you're forced to do it again and again, until the warmth of the blood and the finality of the act become ordinary. The commanders explain that a warrior who flinches at the sight of blood is a liability to her sisters. You must become accustomed to the mechanics of death. Then come the exercises that will truly test your nerve. You are marched to a high platform, a series of wooden structures built to simulate the walls of an enemy fortress. Below is not a soft pile of straw, but the same kind of thorny acacia patch you were forced to run through as a raw recruit. The task is simple. You must climb the wall and jump down into the thorns. It's a terrifying prospect. The fall landing will be agonizing. You watch as the first woman reaches the top. She hesitates, looking down at the bed of spikes below. An instructor behind her gives her a sharp shove. She falls with a scream, landing with a sickening series of thuds and drips. She is immediately pulled out by other officers, her legs and arms bleeding freely, but she is alive. One by one, your unit must make the jump. It is a test of pure, cold courage. When your turn comes, your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs. You don't allow yourself to think. You climb, you reach the top, you close your eyes and you leap. The fall seems to last forever, and the landing is a starburst of pain. But as you are pulled from the thorns, a grim satisfaction settles in you. You have faced your fear and acted anyway. This particular training exercise, known as the washing of the thorns, was a spectacle often performed for foreign visitors and during annual festivals. It was part of the theater of power, designed to demonstrate the unbreakable courage of the king's army. It showed the world that these women were not afraid of pain, and by extension, they were not afraid of death. The most controversial and heavily debated aspect of this insensitivity training involves the treatment of captives. The economy of Dahomey was deeply enmeshed in the slave trade. Wars were fought not just for territory but for people. Captives taken in battle were a primary source of wealth, traded with Europeans at the coast for guns, alcohol, and other goods. Some of these captives were also kept for domestic labor, or in some cases, used in the kingdom's elaborate ritual ceremonies, which often involved human sacrifice. Historical sources, primarily written by European observers, describe a grim training practice where soldiers, sometimes even young recruits, were ordered to execute a captive. The most famous account describes a young girl, perhaps only 12 or 13, being brought before a captured spy. She was given a blade and told to take his head. Hesitantly, she swung the blade, only managing to wound the man. An older, veteran warrior then stepped forward, took the blade, and with a single, expert stroke, finished the job, showing the girl how it was done. The authenticity of these stories is a minefield for modern historians. It is undeniable that Dahomey practiced ritual sacrifice and was a major participant in the slave trade. However, European writers of the period often had a clear agenda. They wanted to portray African kingdoms as savage and barbaric to justify their own colonial expansion. Stories of bloodthirsty Amazons executing helpless prisoners made for sensational reading back home and served a powerful political purpose. It is incredibly difficult to separate fact from propaganda. Did these executions happen as a routine part of military training? Or were they rare, ritualistic events that were blown out of proportion by biased observers? The academic world is still fiercely debating this question, trying to piece together a more nuanced picture from the complex and often tainted historical record. For you, the reality is less about grand, public spectacles and more about a slow, internal hardening. You are taught to see the world in simple, brutal terms. There is your sisterhood. There is the king, and there is the king, and there is the enemy, is a weakness you cannot afford. Hesitation is a betrayal of the woman standing next to you. The training, the songs, they are all designed to strip away the person you were, the girl who would cry at the sight of a wounded bird, and to replace her with something else. By weapon, sharp, hard, and utterly without pity. You can feel the change happening inside you, a cooling of the heart, a narrowing of the eyes. You are becoming what they want you to be. As the edges of your compassion are ground down by the harsh realities of your training, another, more primal part of you is being built up. Your new life is not just a subtractive process of removing fear and pity, it is also an additive one, a layering of rituals and traditions that bind you together and forge a collective, invincible spirit. The palace is not a silent place of grim duty, it is a place of rhythm, of music, of a powerful and intoxicating energy that culminates it. The drumming starts just after the evening meal, as the fierce heat of the day finally begins to bleed into the cool of the night. It's not just one drum, it's an orchestra of them. The deep, resonant throb of the great war drums that can be heard for miles, the sharp, frantic patter of smaller hand drums, the clatter of gourds and the ringing of iron bells. The rhythm is complex, shifting, and it seems to speak directly to your heartbeat, pulling you in. You and the other women of your regiment gather in your designated courtyard. In the flickering torchlight, the faces of your sisters are transformed, their expressions intense and focused. The dances begin. They are not the joyous, celebratory dances of a village festival. They are exercises in controlled violence. You move in perfect unison, 100 bodies stepping, stomping, and lunging as one. The movements are athletic and demanding, a form of high-intensity training disguised as ritual. You drop low to the ground, then spring up, your blade whizzing through the air. You practice charges, your bare feet pounding the earth in a rhythm that matches the drums, a sound like a coming earthquake. Each movement is precise, practiced 1,000 times, a piece of a larger, deadly choreography. The senior officers led the dances, their voices cutting through the thunder of the drums in powerful chanted calls. You and the others respond in a single roaring voice. These are not just songs, they are odes. You sing of your loyalty to the king, vowing to die for him. You sing of your prowess in battle, boasting of the enemies you will conquer. You sing of your bond to each other, a promise to never leave a sister behind, to protect her back as she protects yours. You might chant of being reapers with a harvest near, of your thirsty blades that the king's enemies will give drink to. This chanting, this rhythmic movement, this shared focused aggression has a profound psychological effect. It's a process that modern social scientists call entrainment, where individuals in a group begin to synchronize their physical and emotional states. Your individual anxieties and fears begin to dissolve into the overwhelming power of the collective. You feel stronger, faster, braver than you are on your own. You feel like a small but essential part of a great and terrible storm. Historians and anthropologists see these war dances as a critical component of the Dahomey and army's effectiveness. They serve multiple purposes. They were a form of physical conditioning, building stamina and agility. They were a method of drilling tactical movements, like charges and flanking maneuvers, into muscle memory. And perhaps most importantly, they were a tool for building morale and an aggressive, unified mindset. Before a major campaign, these dances and songs would go on for days, a massive, kingdom-wide festival of war that worked the army and the populace into a fever pitch of anticipation and patriotic fervor. Some of the dances are mimetic, acting out the stories of famous battles or the stylized movements of a hunt. You might perform the leopard dance, your movements low and stealthy, celebrating the king, who is known as the leopard, or you might reenact a famous victory against the rival Agojie kingdom, your movements telling the story of the battle, your chants mocking the defeated enemy. It is a living, breathing history lesson, and by participating, you are connecting yourself to a lineage of warriors stretching back generations. As the dance reaches its climax, the drumming becomes a frantic, thunderous roar. You are no longer consciously thinking about the steps. Your body moves on instinct, fueled by the rhythm and the raw energy of the women around you. You are slick with sweat, your muscles burning, your voice hoarse from chanting. You look at the faces of your sisters in the flickering torchlight, no longer the tired, bruised recruits from the training yard, but fierce, ecstatic visages of war. You feel no pain, no fear. You feel only the beat of the drum, the weight of the blade in your hand, and the unbreakable power of the pack. You are a single, coordinated predator, and you are learning the terrible, beautiful rhythm of the hunt. All of this relentless physical exertion, the running, the fighting, the dancing, requires fuel. A warrior cannot be forged from wood alone. She must be built from stronger stuff. And so your diet, once the simple subsistence fare of your village, is transformed. You are fed with the specific intention of creating a stronger, more resilient human being. You eat far better and far more regularly than almost anyone else in the kingdom, with the exception of the royal family and the highest-ranking ministers. The logistical operation to feed the thousands of women in the palace barracks is a massive undertaking, a testament to the state's commitment to its military. Huge kitchens staffed by another cadre of palace women work from before sunrise to long after sunset, preparing enormous quantities of food. The core of your diet is what you've always known, staples like maize and yams, pounded into a thick, starchy porridge that fills the belly and provides a slow, steady release of energy. But it's the additions to this base that make all the difference. While meat might have been a rare treat in your village, here it is irregular in portions of goat, chicken and fish, providing the protein necessary to rebuild the muscle you tear down in the training yards each day. This diet is not a luxury, it's a strategic investment. A well-fed army is a strong army. A soldier who isn't worried about where her next meal is coming from is a soldier who can focus. It was a significant advantage over many of the neighboring armies, which were often temporary levies of farmers who had to feed themselves. Your army is a professional, standing force, and it is fed like one. Perhaps the most surprising part of your new diet is the regular ration of alcohol. You are given palm wine, a milky, slightly sweet alcoholic beverage fermented from the sap of the palm tree. More importantly, you are given rum or a similar distilled spirit, obtained through trade with the Europeans on the coast. This isn't for leisurely sipping. It is distributed before major ceremonies, before the exhausting war dances, and most importantly, before a battle. The practice of giving soldiers alcohol before a fight is as old as warfare itself, and it was a documented part of the Dahomean military ritual. It was a tool to numb the nerves, to dull the immediate sensation of pain, and to bolster what was often called Dutch courage. A swallow of rum could take the edge off the pre-battle anxiety, transforming fear into a more manageable, aggressive energy. European observers often commented on this, sometimes with a tantalized fascination, describing the women chanting and drinking in the hours before a dawn raid. The precise role and quantity of this alcohol ration is, like many things, a subject of historical interpretation. Some accounts paint a picture of an army intoxicated to the point of wild abandon, which likely contains a heavy dose of colonial exaggeration. A more plausible view, supported by military historians, is that it was a carefully controlled ration, enough to steady the nerves but not enough to impair judgment or coordination. The goal was to create fearless warriors, not clumsy ones. It was one more tool in the psychological arsenal used to prepare you for the unimaginable stress of combat. You also notice that your commanders and the veteran soldiers eat the best food, and more of it. There is a clear hierarchy, and food is one of the ways it is demonstrated. Your rations are good, but theirs are better. It's a simple, unspoken incentive: rise in the ranks, and you will be rewarded. Achieve victory in battle, and you will feast. This link between performance and reward is a powerful motivator. You eat your evening meal with your unit, scooping up the thick porridge and savory stew with your fingers. You are almost always hungry, and the food tastes better than anything you've ever known. You can feel the change in your own body. You are leaner, but heavier. The soft lines of your youth are being replaced by the hard angles of muscle. You can run farther, lift more, endure more than you ever thought possible. You watch as a ration of rum is distributed to a unit of veterans preparing for a night patrol outside the city walls. They take their measure in a single, practiced gulp, their faces impassive. You are not yet considered ready for this ritual. It is a privilege of the fully initiated warrior. But you know that the day is coming when you too will be offered that fiery liquid, that final piece of preparation before you are sent to face the king's enemies. You are being built from the inside out, into a weapon, and this food, this drink is the raw material for your construction. Your world is circumscribed by the high walls of the palace and the dusty expanse of the training yards. You know your regiment, your commanders, and the faces of the women you drill with every day. But you start to hear whispers, fragments of conversation in the meal lines or late at night in the barracks, that suggest the army has other arms, ones that are far less visible than the uniformed masses practicing in the courtyards. You hear of the king's hidden eye. These are women who do not spend their days in endless drills. They are an elite, highly intelligent, and carefully selected group of spies. Dahomey is a kingdom surrounded by rivals. The great city-states of the Yoruba people to the east, like Agojie, and smaller kingdoms in every other direction. To launch a successful military campaign required more than just brute force. It required intelligence. And the king's best intelligence network was composed of his Agojie. These women would dress not as soldiers, but as common merchants. They would leave the capital in small groups, carrying goods to trade: pottery, fine cloth, beads. Their appearance was completely unassuming. They were just women on the road heading to the bustling markets of a neighboring kingdom. No one would give them a second glance. And that was their greatest weapon. As they sat in the marketplace, haggling over prices, they would listen. They listened to the gossip of the other merchants, to the boasts of farmers. They would learn which city gates were weekly guarded, where the granaries were located, what the morale of the local army was like. They would map out the city's defenses in their minds, noting the condition of the walls and the paths to the wells. Their training was not in the swing of a blade, but in the art of observation, of memory, of blending in so perfectly that they became invisible. This use of female spies was a stroke of genius. In the deeply patriarchal societies of most of their rivals, women were consistently underestimated. They were not seen as a threat. A male stranger asking too many questions in a market would immediately arouse suspicion. A woman, however, was just a woman. She was perceived as being concerned only with commerce and domestic affairs, not with matters of state or war. This ingrained cultural bias was a vulnerability the kings of Dahomey exploited with ruthless efficiency. The existence of this intelligence score is well supported by both the oral traditions of Dahomey and the written accounts of European visitors. It demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of statecraft and espionage. Wars were not just won on the battlefield, they were won months in advance by the quiet work of these women. Some historians argue that this intelligence-gathering role might have been the original function for some of the king's female retainers, even before the formation of a large, standing army. The warrior role, they suggest, evolved from this initial role of trusted, loyal agents. As is often the case with the kingdom's history, the precise timeline is a matter of academic discussion. One day you see a small group of women preparing to leave the palace. They are not wearing the familiar striped tunics of your regiment. They are dressed in the simple, colorful wraps of market women. Their hair is styled in a common fashion. They carry baskets of goods on their heads, but you recognize them. One of them was an instructor who taught you hand-to-hand combat months ago. She was impossibly fast and brutally effective. Seeing her now, laughing and chattering like a common trader, is a deeply unsettling experience. She meets your gaze for a fleeting second, and her eyes are not laughing. They are as cold and sharp as ever. Then she turns and is gone, melting into the bustle of the world outside the gates. You realize the army is everywhere. It is the uniformed soldier practicing in the sun, but it is also the woman selling yams in an enemy's market. This revelation deepens your understanding of the king's power. His reach is long, his methods subtle. It also adds a new layer to the stories of famous victories. They were not just the result of the army's fearsome charge, but of the careful, patient, and incredibly dangerous work that came before. You think about the immense courage it must take to do that job, to walk unarmed into the heart of a hostile city, surrounded by enemies, knowing that a single slip of the tongue, a single suspicious glance, could mean a brutal death. Your own courage is tested daily in the training yard, a courage of the body, of enduring pain and mastering fear, but theirs is a different kind, a courage of the mind, of nerve and deception. The whispers of these hidden eyes add to the growing legend of the army you have joined. It is more than just a collection of fighters. It is a living weapon with a visible edge and a hidden poison tip. It makes you feel a renewed sense of pride, but also a quiet sense of awe at the complex and dangerous world. You are a riflewoman, as straightforward to love the king's will. But you are glad, in a way, that your path is the open one. You are not sure you possess the quiet, terrifying bravery required to be one of the king's invisible women. The dry season arrives, turning the red earth to dust and the air thick with a hazy, shimmering heat. With the harvest complete and the roads clear, the season for war approaches. But before any campaign can be launched, there is the annual customs, the most important festival in the Dahomean calendar. It is a massive, weeks-long spectacle of feasting, ceremony, and military parades, and it is the first time you will appear before the king and the entire kingdom as a soldier. The energy in the palace shifts. The already intense training regimen is ramped up to a fever pitch. Your uniform is inspected for the smallest tear or stain. Your musket is polished until the metal gleams and the wood glows. You practice marching for hours under the blistering sun, your lines perfectly straight, your steps falling in a single, thunderous beat. This is not just a parade, it is a demonstration of power, a piece of political theater on the grandest scale, designed to awe the king's subjects and send a clear, intimidating message to the ambassadors of neighboring kingdoms who are always in attendance. On the day of the grand review, you are woken hours before dawn. The air is electric with nervous energy. You dress with meticulous care. Your regiment forms up in its designated courtyard, a sea of blue and white stripes in the pre-dawn gloom. Your commander, a stern veteran named Adana, walks the lines, her eyes missing nothing. She adjusts a strap here, straightens a cap there. Her gaze falls on you, and for a moment, you fear you have done something wrong. Almost imperceptible nod. She gives a low rumble to stand tall, that today the king sees his true strength. You march out of the palace and into the vast public square, the Agora. It is packed with people, thousands of them, their faces a blur of color and excitement. The noise is overwhelming, the shouting of the crowd, the ever-present thunder of the drums, the ritualized chanting. You take your position, your heart hammering, your eyes fixed straight ahead, just as you were trained. You are a small part of an immense and terrifying display. The entire army is here. Thousands of women, arranged in their regiments. The huntresses with their bows and quivers, the fearsome reapers, leaning on their heavy blades, their faces painted with intimidating patterns. And your own regiment, the rifle women, standing in disciplined, silent ranks, your muskets held perfectly at your side. The king appears on a high platform, shaded by vast, brightly colored parasols. He is a dazzling figure, covered in gold and fine silks. The roar from the crowd is deafening. The ceremony begins. Ministers give long, boastful speeches. Tributes from vassal states are presented. Then the military review starts. One by one, the regiments showcase their skills. The reapers perform a wild, terrifying war dance, their blades a whirlwind of flashing steel. The huntresses stage a mock battle, a blur of agile, acrobatic movements. Then, it is your turn. Commander Anna's voice rings out, sharp and clear, with the sequence of commands to present arms, to load, to wave. You move as one, a single, fluid machine. The movements you have practiced 10,000 times are now performed before the entire world. The silence from the crowd is absolute, a held breath of anticipation. Then comes the command to fire. 1,000 muskets go off at once. The sound is not a series of pops. It is a physical blow, a single, cataclysmic crack of thunder that rolls across the square and echoes off the palace walls. A dense cloud of white smoke instantly obscures everything, filling the air with the familiar, acrid smell of gunpowder. The crowd gasps, then erupts into a wild cheer. Through the smoke, you go through the reloading sequence, your hands moving with swift, sure precision. This display of disciplined volley fire was a key element of the army's reputation. Many other West African armies of the period fought in a more individualistic style. The ability of the Dahomean army to act as a single, coordinated unit, to deliver such a concentrated and terrifying blow on command, was a huge tactical and psychological advantage. The festival also included more controversial elements. There was the public execution of prisoners of war, a grim ritual that served as both a religious offering and a stark warning to the kingdom's enemies. Historians continue to analyze the meaning of these sacrifices. Were they primarily an act of religious piety, a demonstration of the king's power over life and death, or a calculated act of political terror? The answer is likely a complex combination of all three, deeply rooted in Dahomean cosmology and the brutal realities of the era. As a soldier in the ranks, you are shielded from the more complex political and religious meanings. Your world is one of duty and display. You stand for hours under the hot sun, unmoving, a symbol of the king's power made manifest. You feel the eyes of the crowd on you, a mixture of awe, pride, and fear. You are no longer just a girl from a village. You are an instrument of the state, a gear in the great war machine of Dahomey. As you march back to the palace at the end of the long day, your body aching with fatigue, you feel a profound change in yourself. The fear and uncertainty of the recruit have been replaced by a quiet, solid sense of belonging. You have passed the test. You have been seen, and you have been recognized. The annual spectacle is over. Now, the real work can begin. The drums that beat for the parade will soon beat for war. The festive atmosphere of the annual customs fades as quickly as the dry ease and dust is swept from the courtyards. A palpable, humming energy that you feel in your bones. The boastful speeches and ceremonial dances are over. The weapons, once polished for display, are now being sharpened for a purpose. You can feel it in the way the commanders' voices have a harder edge, in the grim efficiency of the quartermasters distributing extra rations and ammunition. The decision has been made. The kingdom is going to war. The specific target is a closely guarded secret, known only to the king and his highest-ranking generals. But the whispers in the barracks begin to form a consensus. It will be Agojie, the powerful Agojie city to the southeast, a major rival for control of the trade routes to the coast. The Agojie have long been a thorn in Dahomey's side, and the king is determined to remove it. The awakening of the war drums confirms it. This is not the complex, celebratory rhythm of the festival. This is a different sound entirely. It's a deep, slow, hypnotic heartbeat that starts in the dead of night. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom. It's a sound that travels for miles, a message to the entire kingdom. It speaks of mobilization, of gathering force, of a coming storm. The sound seems to vibrate up from the soles of your feet, settling in your chest. It is the sound of destiny calling. You and your sisters in the Gulo Henta regiment are summoned to the armory. You are issued your full battle gear. You receive a leather cartridge box with a thick shoulder strap, filled with dozens of paper cartridges. You are given a small gourd for water and a pouch of parched corn, your rations for the march. Finally, you are given your blade, the heavy machete you have trained with for so long. It feels different now, heavier with intent. The tools of your trade are no longer for practice. They are for the grim business of life and death. The psychological preparation is as intense as the physical. The war songs and dances, which had been a part of your daily training, now take on a new, fervent intensity. You dance for hours, working yourself into a state of focused aggression, your fears and doubts burned away by the heat of the collective ritual. Priests move through the ranks, blessing your weapons, making offerings to Gu, the spirit of iron and war. They mark your forehead with a protective charm, a mixture of ash and sacred herbs. This deep integration of religion and warfare is a crucial aspect of Dahomean culture. You are not just fighting for the king's political ambitions. You are fighting in a holy war. You are the instruments of the kingdom's patron spirits. Victory will bring glory to the ancestors. Defeat would be a spiritual disaster. This belief system is a powerful force, transforming a military campaign into a sacred duty. It helps to forge a courage that goes beyond simple discipline. There is, however, a quiet, nagging debate among modern scholars about the true feelings of the individual soldiers. The official narrative, the one told in the war, songs and the king's speeches, is one of unwavering loyalty and fanatical bravery. But what about the woman in the ranks? What did you, as an individual, truly feel the night before your first campaign? Were you filled with patriotic fervor, or were you paralyzed by a cold, quiet terror? The historical record, written by kings and foreign observers, rarely captures the internal world of the common soldier. It's a silence in the archives that historians are constantly trying to fill, using oral traditions and comparative studies to imagine the human emotions behind the mythic facade. On the night before you are set to march, your commander, Dana, gathers your unit. The torchlight plays across her scarred, familiar face. She does not give a rousing speech. Her voice is low, practical. She says that everything you have done has led to this, that the thorns, the blades, the smoke were all for tomorrow. She says you are ready. She pauses, then tells you to look at the woman to your right, that she is your family now. She tells you her life is in your hands, as yours is in hers, and that you must not fail her. She tells you to get what little sleep you can. But sleep is a distant country. You lie on your mat, the rhythmic booming of the great drums a constant companion. You run through the musket loading sequence in your head, over and over, until the steps are a silent mantra. you feel the familiar weight of the blade resting beside you. A new kind of fear, cold and sharp, finds its way through the armor of your training. It's not the fear of pain which you have learned to master, of the chaos that you know is coming. You reach out in the darkness and your hand finds the hand of the woman lying next to you. She grips it tightly. No words are spoken. None are needed. In the shared darkness, surrounded by the breathing of your sisters and the relentless heartbeat of the war drums, you wait for the long road to Agojie. The march begins before the sun. The great gates of Dahomey swing open, and a river of soldiers flows out into the grey pre-dawn light. The column is immensely long, a serpent of blue and white cloth and gleaming iron stretching for miles. The numbers are staggering. Estimates for a major campaign like this often range from 8,000 to as many as 12,000 female soldiers, accompanied by an even larger contingent of male warriors, porters, and camp followers. The entire military might of the kingdom is on the move. You find your place in the column with the other riflewomen. The initial excitement and nervous energy quickly gives way to the grueling reality of the march. This is the ultimate test of the endurance you have built over the past year. Your world narrows to the simple, punishing rhythm of walking. Left foot, right foot, the dust puffing up around your bare feet with every step. The pace is relentless, set by the veterans at the front. There are few breaks. You learn to eat your parched corn as you walk, to sip sparingly from your water gourd. The sun climbs into the sky, beating down with a merciless, oppressive heat. Sweat soaks your tunic, gluing it to your skin. The weight of your musket, once a familiar burden in the training yard, now feels like a leaden anchor, its strap cutting a raw groove into your shoulder. The landscape of Dahomey unfolds around you. You pass through small farming villages where people line the path, their faces a mixture of awe and fear. They offer you gourds of water and handfuls of fruit, their hands trembling slightly. They know that this great river of soldiers is the source of their protection, the guarantor of their lives, but its power is terrifying up close. You see the tribute they pay to the king in their deference. One of the curious and debated aspects of your army is its musical accompaniment. It is not a silent march. Drummers and horn players are interspersed throughout the column, their rhythms constant, hypnotic. The music is not for entertainment, it is functional. It helps maintain the marching pace, it communicates simple orders down the long column, and it builds a sense of collective identity and morale. You find yourself matching your steps to the beat without even thinking, your body becoming part of the larger, rhythmic organism. Some European accounts describe the army as being incredibly loud on the march, with constant singing and chanting. This has led to a historical debate: was this a sign of poor discipline, or a deliberate psychological tactic? Many scholars now argue for the latter. The sound of the approaching army, a chorus of thousands of female voices and the thunder of drums, would have been an incredibly intimidating weapon in itself, striking fear into the hearts of their enemies long before the first shot was fired. Days blur into one another. Each evening, the army makes camp in a vast, temporary city of simple shelters. You clean your musket meticulously, removing the dust of the road. You eat your meager ration of stew. You fall into an exhausted sleep almost instantly, only to be woken before dawn to begin the rhythm all over again. You march through dense forests, the air thick and humid, and across open savannas where the heat radiates up from the baked earth. You wade through shallow rivers, the cool water a blessed relief on your aching feet. You are no longer an individual, you are a single cell in a vast, crawling creature. Your personal discomforts, the blisters on your feet, the gnawing hunger, the deep, weary ache in your bones, are insignificant. All that matters is keeping up, maintaining your place in the line, ensuring the woman in front of you and the woman behind you are safe. You see Commander Aid and are moving up and down the line, her energy seemingly limitless. She has a sharp word for those who are flagging, a quiet nod of approval for those who maintain their discipline. She is the sinew that holds your unit together. You see the incredible logistics of the operation, the columns of porters, mostly men, carrying the heavy supplies, the extra gunpowder, the food, the commander's tents. This is not a simple raid. It is a full-scale invasion, a nation going to war. The road to Agojie is long, over 60 miles of unforgiving terrain. The march itself is a weapon. designed to exhaust and demoralize Dahomey's enemies through sheer persistence. But it is also a filter. Any weakness in the army, any lack of discipline or endurance, is exposed and ground away on this journey. By the time you arrive at the enemy's city, you will be exhausted, but you will also be harder, leaner, and more focused than ever before. And now you are being sharpened by the road. The red dust of the journey becomes a second skin, a gritty reminder of the miles you have crossed and the grim purpose that lies at the end of them. After what feels like an eternity on the march, the landscape begins to change. The open savanna gives way to rocky outcrops and hills. You are approaching Agojie. The name itself means under the rock, a reference to the massive granite formations that provide the city with its natural defenses. The air grows thick with a new kind of tension, a silent, humming anticipation. The rhythmic marching drums fall silent, replaced by the quiet commands of the officers. Stealth and surprise are now your greatest allies. The army makes its final camp in a hidden, wooded valley a few miles from the city. Here, under the cover of darkness, the final preparations are made. You and your sisters huddle in your units as the commanders, who have been briefed by the king and his generals, explain the plan of attack. Commander Aidina gathers your regiment, her face a grim mask in the low light of a heavily shielded fire. She unrolls a crudely drawn map in the dirt, a sketch provided by the king's spies. She points with a stick. She explains that Agojie is confident in its walls and that they are strong. She says their true defense is the Olumo Rock and the Ogun River, and they will expect an attack from the south at the main gate. She draws a long, looping line on the map, explaining that you will not attack from the south, but will make a feint to draw their warriors there. The real attack, she says, will come from the west at dawn where the wall is weaker. The plan is classic Dahomean strategy, a combination of meticulous intelligence, deception, and a ferocious, lightning-fast assault on an unexpected weak point. The goal is not to lay a long siege, for which you lack the supply lines, but to breach the walls quickly, create chaos and panic within the city, and achieve your objectives before the enemy can mount a coordinated defense. This emphasis on psychological warfare, the shock and awe of a sudden, overwhelming attack, was one of the army's greatest strengths. Aidina looks up from the map, her eyes finding yours in the darkness. She clarifies your job as riflewomen is to be the tip of the spear. You will advance under the cover of the morning mist and get as close as possible. On her signal, you will deliver the first volley, a disciplined and devastating fire aimed at the men on the wall. This fire will signal the main assault by the Reapers. She asks if you understand. You all nod, a silent, collective affirmation. The final hours are a blur of ritual and quiet readiness. You check your musket one last time. You run your thumb along the edge of your blade. You eat a handful of roasted ground nuts and take a small, measured sip of the rum that is passed around, its fire spreading a welcome warmth through your chest. You see some women sharpening stakes to doctor into the ground at the base of the wall, a grim and effective tool to injure defenders who might try to jump down. This level of detailed colonial narrative of African armies being disorganized, chaotic hordes. The historical reality, supported by military analysis, is that Dahomey's military leadership was capable of sophisticated tactical and strategic planning. They understood the principles of maneuver, surprise, and combined arms using their different regiments in a coordinated fashion to achieve their objectives. There's an ongoing academic discussion about the extent to which these strategies were influenced by contact with European military advisors, but most evidence points to a largely indigenous military science, developed and perfected over generations of constant warfare. As the eastern sky begins to pale from black to a soft charcoal gray, the command comes to move out. You rise silently, a ghost army moving through the pre-dawn darkness. The only sounds are the soft scuff of thousands of bare feet on the earth and the gentle clink of a weapon against a cartridge bolt. You feel a strange calm settle over you. The gnawing fear of the unknown has been replaced by the sharp focus of a clear and imminent purpose. You know your job. You know the women to your left and right are depending on you. The years of brutal training, the endless drills, the pain and the exhaustion, it has all converged to this single, silent moment. You move through the cool, damp grass, the city of Agojie, a sleeping shadow on the horizon. You are the king's weapon, and you are about to strike. The mist is thick, a cool, damp blanket that clings to the ground and muffles all sound. It's a gift from the spirits, a perfect shroud for your approach. You move in a low crouch, your eyes straining to see through the grey haze, your musket held tight against your chest. The silhouette of Agojie's western wall slowly resolves out of the gloom, a dark, imposing line against the faintly lightening sky. You are impossibly close, much closer than you thought you could get without being detected. The king's spies were right. The sentries are either asleep or seeking shelter from the morning chill. You and the other riflewomen spread out, forming a long, silent line at the edge of the brush, just beyond the cleared ground at the base of the wall. You can hear the city beginning to stir, the distant crow of a rooster, the faint cry of a baby. It's an ordinary morning, and its inhabitants have no idea that a storm of unimaginable fury is about to break upon them. You drop to one knee, the damp earth cold against your skin, and begin the loading sequence. Your hands move with a life of their own, the familiar ballet of bite, pour and ram performed in a state of heightened, almost dreamlike focus. You prime the pan, your heart a steady, heavy beat in your ears. From the south, you hear a sudden eruption of noise, the roar of 1,000 male voices, the crackle of scattered musketry. It is the feint, the diversion. On the wall ahead of you, you see figures start to appear, silhouetted against the dawn sky. Men shouting, pointing south, their attention completely drawn to the false attack. They are gathering on the parapet, presenting you with perfect targets. Commander Aidana is a few paces to your right, a still dark shape. She raises her hand. Time seems to slow down. The entire world narrows to that hand, to the wall, to the weight of the musket in your own hands. Her hand dropped. The command is a harsh, ripping whisper to fire. Your world explodes in a single simultaneous cataclysm of sound, smoke, and flame. The volley is perfect. 1,000 muskets speak as one. A devastating thunderclap that shatters the morning quiet. The recoil slams into your shoulder, a familiar, brutal punch. The wall in front of you disappears behind a solid bank of thick, white smoke. Through the smoke you hear screams, not the defiant war cries of soldiers, but the high, thin shrieks of surprise and agony. The psychological shock of the volley is as powerful as the lead balls themselves. Aidana bellows for the reapers to go. From the mist behind you, a wave of women surges forward, the Nikaplo Huntu, their heavy blades in hand, their faces contorted into terrifying masks of fury. They let out a chilling, high-pitched war cry as they run, a sound designed to freeze the blood of any man who hears it. They carry crude but effective wooden ladders, and they reach the base of the wall before the defenders can even begin to understand what is happening. Your job is not over. The command to reload comes even before the echo of the first volley has faded. Your hands, slick with sweat, fly through the sequence again. You are not thinking, you are just doing. You are just doing. You are a part of a machine. As you ram the charge home, you see the reapers scaling the walls, hacking at the few defenders who try to push their ladders away. It is a scene of utter, brutal chaos. You raise your musket for the second shot. The smoke has cleared slightly. You can see the reapers pouring over the top of the wall, their blades rising and falling. You pick a target, a defender leaning over the parapet to throw a spear, and you fire. This is the reality of combat that no training can truly prepare you for. It is a sensory overload, a maelstrom of noise, smoke, and sudden, shocking violence. It is nothing like the orderly drills of the training yard. Men are shouting, women are screaming. The air is thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood. There is no time for fear, no time for pity. There is only the next action: reload, aim, fire. The history of these battles is often written in terms of grand strategy, but the outcome is decided in moments like these, in the blur of individual actions. Historians still debate the effectiveness of the small harbor muskets of this era. They were wildly inaccurate at any significant distance. The key to their use, which the Dahomean army perfected, was to get very close and fire in a mass volley, creating a wall lid that was devastatingly effective at short range. Your disciplined approach is a testament to this tactical understanding. The tide of the battle turns with astonishing speed. The Reapers have secured a section of the wall and are now fighting their way to open a gate from the inside. The element of surprise was total. The main body of Agojie's army is still massed on the other side of the city, responding to the feint. Commander Raid and it gives a new command to advance. You rise and move forward with the rest of the riflewomen, picking your way through the fallen on the cleared ground, your blade now in your hand. The battle for the wall is over. The battle for the city is about to begin. You pour through the now open gate, a relentless tide of violence flooding into the sleeping streets. You pour into the city like a river breaking its banks. The disciplined order of the battlefield dissolves into the chaotic, sprawling confusion of street-to-street fighting. Agojie is a labyrinth of narrow alleyways, mud-walled compounds, and crowded market squares. The grand strategy of the generals gives way to the brutal, intimate tactics of the small unit. Your world shrinks to the women immediately around you. You move together, a tight-knit pack of 10 or 12 riflewomen, your initial volley fire now useless in these close quarters. Your musket is now just a clumsy club. The blade is what matters. Commander Raidana is at the front of your group, her voice a constant, calming presence amidst the mayhem. She directs you with hand signals, pointing out threats, indicating which alley to take next. Her experience is the anchor that keeps you from being overwhelmed by the sheer sensory chaos. The resistance is sporadic at first, then grows more desperate. Men, roused from their sleep, pour out of their homes armed with swords, spears, and ancient muskets. The fighting is a series of short, savage encounters. A group of Agojie warriors charges your position. You and your sisters form a tight, back-to-back circle, your blades a hedge of glittering steel. There is no room for elegant swordplay, only for brutal, efficient cuts and thrusts. The skills you honed for a year in the training yard are now all that stand between you and death. You see a warrior raise a spear to throw at Aid Anna, whose back is turned. You lunge forward, your blade swinging in a low, powerful arc that you have practiced 1,000 times. You feel a sickening jolt as it connects with his leg. He screams and goes down. One of your sisters finishes him with a quick thrust. There is no time to feel anything, not triumph. There is only the next threat. Your primary objective is not to conquer and hold the entire city. It is to capture prisoners and valuable goods, and to destroy key military and economic targets before retreating. You fight your way towards a large central market, where you know the city's wealth is concentrated. As you move deeper into the city, the grim reality of Dahomean warfare becomes clear. The battle is not just against soldiers. Your targets are anyone of fighting age, but also any civilian who might be valuable as a captive. The line between combatant and non-combatant, a concept that is already blurry in modern warfare, was almost non-existent here. Taking captives was a central economic and political goal of the campaign. You see the Reapers, the Ikplo Huntu, living up to their terrifying name. They swarm through compounds, dragging out men and women, binding their wrists with rope. Those who resist are cut down without a second thought. It is a brutal, terrifyingly efficient operation. This aspect of Dahomey's history is the most difficult and controversial. The kingdom's power and wealth were built, in large part, on the Atlantic slave trade. Wars like the one you are fighting were essentially large-scale slave raids. The captives taken from Agojie would be marched back to Dahomey. Some would be kept as slaves within the kingdom, forced to work on royal plantations. Many others would be sold to European raiders at the port of Wida in exchange for the very guns and gunpowder that made these conquests possible. It was a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. Historians grapple with how to present this legacy. It is a stark reminder that one can admire the military prowess, discipline, and unique social structure of the Dahomean army while also condemning the brutal economy it served. It complicates any simple narrative of heroism. You are a courageous, skilled soldier fighting for your king and your people, but you are also a cog in the vast, terrible machine of the slave trade. It is a duality that is essential to understanding this period of history. Your unit secures a section of the market, while some of you stand guard, fending off desperate counterattacks. Others gather what can be carried: bolts of fine cloth, bags of cowrie shells used as currency, and most importantly, captives. The sun is high in the sky now, the heat intense, the battle has been raging for hours. You are dehydrated, exhausted, your arms trembling with fatigue. Finally, the signal comes, the long, mournful call of a war horn. It is the command to withdraw. The objectives have been met. To stay longer would be to risk getting bogged down as the full might of Agojie's army finally organizes and counterattacks. The retreat is as disciplined as the attack. You move back towards the breach in the wall, forming a rear guard, protecting the long column of soldiers herding the terrified, weeping captives. You fire volleys to keep the pursuing Agojie warriors at bay, the smoke and noise covering your withdrawal. As you finally pass back through the wall and into the open country, you take a moment to look back at the city. Smoke rises from a dozen different fires. The sounds of fighting are replaced by the sounds of wailing and grief. You have won a great victory for your king. You have brought back wealth and prisoners that will strengthen the kingdom. But the price of that victory is written in the devastation you leave behind. It is a grim, bloody arithmetic, and for the first time, you are beginning to understand its true cost. The years pass in a cycle of dry seasons and rainy seasons and rainy seasons, of campaigns and fallow periods. You are no longer a frightened recruit. You are a veteran, a seasoned riflewoman of the Gulo Hen too. Your face is leaner, harder. Your arms are roped with muscle, and a fine web of silvery scars on your forearms tells the story of battles won on desperate parries made. You have risen in rank, now leading a small unit of your own. The fear of your first battle has been replaced by a grim, professional calm. You are a pillar of the king's army, a symbol of Dahomey's seemingly invincible power. The victories continue. You fight against the Mahi to the north, the Yoruba to the east. The kingdom expands, its coffers swell with tribute and the trade from captives. Your reputation, and that of your sisters, becomes almost mythical. You are the king's leopards, the reapers of men, the terror of West Africa. But a new story is beginning to unfold, a story that does not come from the inland kingdoms, but from the great water to the south. You have always known of the coast of the port city of Wide, where the king's ministers trade with the white men from across the sea. It is the source of your muskets, your gunpowder, your rum. For generations, this trade has been a cornerstone of the kingdom's power. Now, however, the nature of this relationship is changing. More ships are appearing on the horizon than ever before, and the men who come off them are different. They are not just traders anymore. They are soldiers, explorers, and missionaries, with a new and unsettling arrogance in their eyes. They come from a place called France. At first, their presence is just a curiosity, a source of strange new goods and stranger rumors. You hear tales of their weapons, cannons that can shatter the walls of a city from a mile away, and rifles that can be loaded and fired many times in a minute. You dismiss it as exaggeration, the kind of boastful talk common among soldiers. No musket can fire faster than a skilled warrior can reload. It is impossible. Then the French begin to assert themselves in ways that cannot be ignored. They build a fortified trading post at a town called Cotonou on the coast, claiming it as their own challenge to the king's authority, an insult that cannot be borne. The king, now a new man named Behans and who is as proud and defiant as any of his ancestors, sends emissaries to demand they leave. A tension, cold and sharp, begins to build across the kingdom. The old rivalries with the Yoruba and the Mahi seem like petty squabbles compared to this new threat. These Frenchmen do not fight for captives or for tribute. They seem to want the land itself. The academic consensus is clear on this period. This was the height of the scramble for Africa, when European powers were carving up the continent among themselves, driven by a combination of economic greed, nationalistic pride, and a professed, if deeply hypocritical, civilizing mission. The French saw the powerful, centralized kingdom of Dahomey as the main obstacle to their colonial ambitions in the region. A clash was inevitable. You see the first signs of this new reality in the equipment of your own army. The king's traders managed to acquire a few of the new rifles, the ones that fire cartridges, not loose powder and ball. You and the other veteran officers are shown how they work. The mechanism is a marvel of speed and efficiency, but there are only a handful of them. The vast majority of your army is still armed with the same old flintlock muskets you have always used. For the first time, you feel a flicker of unease, a sense that the tools that had made you powerful might no longer be enough. The war drums begin to beat again. But this time, the rhythm is different. It is not the confident, aggressive beat of a planned conquest. It is a deeper, more somber rhythm. A defensive rhythm. The enemy is not a rival kingdom whose tactics you understand. The enemy is a strange new force with strange new weapons and an unknowable hunger. Your regiment is mobilized, not to march inland to Agojie but south, towards Cotonou. As you march, you see the worried faces of the villagers. The myths of your invincibility, once a comfort to them, now seem fragile. You stand on a hill overlooking the coastal plains, the salt spray of the Atlantic carried on the wind, a smell you are not used to. In the distance, you can see the French fort, a low geometric structure, and beyond it, anchored in the bay, are their ships. They are massive, grey steel beasts, with no sails, belching smoke from tall funnels. They are unlike any vessel you have ever seen. They are monsters of the sea. A profound sense of foreboding settles over you. All your training, all your courage has been designed for a certain kind of war. You know how to find out how you fare against machines. The strange sails on the horizon are not just ships. They are a sign that your entire world is about to be tested in a fire you cannot yet comprehend. The first clash with the French is a shocking, brutal education in the new realities of warfare. It is nothing like the chaotic, close-quarters brawls you are used to. It is a lesson in the grim mathematics of modern firepower. The battle takes place in open country, a few miles from the French fort. Your commanders, relying on the tactics that have served them for a century, plan for a massive, overwhelming frontal assault. The army is a magnificent, terrifying sight. Thousands of warriors, male and female, chanting their war songs, their banners flying. A great wave of human courage roaming across the plain. You are in the front rank of the riflewomen, your heart pounding with a mixture of pride and dread. The French are a tiny, insignificant line of blue-coated soldiers, a few hundred at most, kneeling in the tall grass. They are silent. They do not chant. They do not dance. They just wait. The command comes to charge. You surge forward, raising your musket, preparing for that first devastating volley at close range. And then the world ends. The sound is not the familiar, thunderous roar of your own massed muskets. It is a new sound, a continuous deafening crackle, like 1,000 whips breaking at once. Puffs of smoke appear all along the French line, but they are small, quickly dissipating, not the great blinding clouds you are used to. In front of you, your sisters begin to fall. They are not wounded, they simply drop, their bodies thrown backward as if by an invisible hand. There are no screams, just the sickening thud of bodies hitting the earth. You are still hundreds of yards away, far beyond the effective range of your own muskets, yet the air around you is filled with a lethal, invisible hum. You drop to one knee, raise your musket, and fire, but it is a gesture of defiance, not of strategy. Your single shot is lost in the continuous, murderous fire of the French Lebel rifles and their machine guns. These weapons are a quantum leap in technology. The Lebel rifle uses a smokeless powder cartridge and can be fired 8 times before reloading. The Hotchkiss machine gun can fire hundreds of rounds a minute. This technological disparity is the tragic, defining feature of almost all colonial wars of this period. Historians have extensively documented how small European forces were able to defeat much larger indigenous armies through superior firepower. It wasn't a question of courage or strategy or discipline, in all of which the Dahomean army excelled. It was a simple, brutal equation of lead. The French could deliver a volume and accuracy of fire that was simply insurmountable. You see the Reapers, the fearsome Yellow Horn too, trying to close the distance, their blades held high, their war cries turning to screams as they are cut down in swaths. The charge falters, breaks. The wave of courage shatters against a wall of bullets. The command comes to retreat, a command you have never heard before in the midst of a battle. You fall back, dragging a wounded sister with you, the continuous crackle of the French rifles chasing you from the field. The retreat is orderly, a testament to your incredible discipline even in the face of this new horror, but it is a retreat nonetheless. In the aftermath, the mood in the camp is one of stunned disbelief. You have lost more women in a single, disastrous hour than in whole campaigns against the Yoruba. You look at your flintlock musket, the weapon that has been your trusted companion, your symbol of power. It now feels like a heavy, useless stick. The commanders are forced to rethink everything. The old ways will not work. Frontal assaults or suicide. A period of intense debate and adaptation begins. How do you fight an enemy you cannot reach? How do you counter a weapon that kills from so far away? The answer, as always, lies in your own strengths, your knowledge of the terrain, your skill in stealth, and your unbreakable courage. You begin to fight a new kind of war. A war of ambushes, of night raids, of lightning-fast strikes on French supply columns, followed by an immediate disappearance into the dense bush where their machine guns are useless. You become ghosts, striking from the shadows. Using your blades and your wits, you rear, you prove that you are not broken. But it is a grueling, exhausting war of attrition. For every French soldier you kill, 10 more seem to arrive on the next ship. Their supply of men and ammunition seems endless, while yours is finite. You capture some of their new rifles, and they are like gifts from the gods, but there are never enough. You lie in ambush in the humid darkness, waiting for a French patrol. The bravado of the war dances is gone, replaced by a cold, patient, and deeply personal hatred. You are no longer fighting for glory or for captors. You are fighting for the right to exist. The courage you now display is of a different kind. It is not the courage of a confident charge into the heart of an enemy. It is the courage to continue fighting when you know, in a cold, hard place deep in your gut, that you are facing a machine you cannot possibly defeat. The war grinds on, a desperate, bloody struggle that lasts for months. You and your sisters have learned the painful lessons of the new battlefield. You are no longer an army of conquest. You are an army of resistance. You have traded open plains for dense forests, mass charges for silent ambushes. You have become masters of guerrilla warfare, phantoms that haunt the French supply lines, melting back into the jungle before they can bring their superior firepower to bear. But the machine is relentless. The French columns, though bloodied, keep pushing inland, their advance slow but inexorable. They build fortified blockhouses, burn villages, and destroy crops, waging a war not just on your army, but on the very land that sustains you. The final, inevitable confrontation is coming. The French are marching on Agojie, the sacred capital, the heart of the kingdom. King Behanzin has declared that the capital will not fall. Every able-bodied person is mobilized for its defense. The final stand will be made here. You march back to the city you left as a confident conqueror, and you find it transformed into a fortress. Trenches have been dug, barricades of earth and timber erected. The air, once filled with the sounds of markets and festivals, is now thick with the grim silence of a city under siege. You take your position in a trench outside the main palace walls. You are a veteran now, a commander of your small unit, and the faces that look to you for guidance are young, many of them barely more than girls, hastily trained recruits thrown into the line to replace the staggering losses you have suffered. They look at you with a mixture of awe and terror, and you try to project a calm you do not feel. The French arrive, not as a simple line of infantry in the distance, but as a vast modern army. They bring artillery, cannons that lob explosive shells from miles away. The bombardment begins. This is a new kind of terror. The world becomes a shaking, screaming hell of noise and concussion. The earth heaves, and shells burst in plumes of black smoke and deadly shrapnel. There is nothing to fight, no enemy to charge. You can only huddle in your trench, praying to the ancestors, as the world is torn apart around you. The historical accounts of the final battles for Agojie are a testament to the sheer desperation and courage of the Dahomean forces. Outgunned and outnumbered by a technologically superior foe, they fought for every inch of ground. The female soldiers in particular were noted by French officers for their incredible tenacity, often fighting to the last rather than surrendering. They were defending not just a city, but a way of life, the source of their power, their identity, and their honor. After days of relentless bombardment, the French infantry advances. They come in disciplined lines, their bayonets gleaming. The order is given to hold your fire until they are close, to make every shot count. Your remaining stock of gunpowder is perilously low. You rest your musket on the edge of the trench, your hands steady, your focus absolute. You wait, just as you did on that misty morning outside Agojie so long ago. But everything is different now. The confidence is gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. You are not fighting for victory. You are fighting to sell your lives as dearly as possible. The command to fire rips through the roar of the cannons. You and the other defenders rise up and unleash a ragged but determined volley. The French line staggers, men fall, but it does not break. They keep coming, their own rifles firing with that terrifying, continuous crackle. The fighting devolves into a desperate, hand-to-hand struggle in the trenches and among the ruined buildings of the city outskirts. It is a battle of blades and bayonets, of clubbed muskets and bare hands. This is the kind of fighting you were born for, and here, the French machines are less of an advantage. You and your sisters fight with a ferocity born of utter desperation. You are no longer just soldiers, you are lionesses defending your lair. You see Commander Adana, your old mentor, leading a charge against a French machine gun nest, her heavy blade raised high. She is cut down in a hail of bullets, her body falling amidst the young women she was leading. A wave of pure, hot rage washes over you, burning away your fear. You fight not with skill or tactics, but with a pure primal fury. But it is not enough. For every French soldier that falls, two more seem to step over his body. The lines are overrun. The barricades are breached. The French are pouring into the city. The king, seeing that the battle is lost and wanting to prevent a massacre of the civilian population, gives the order to set the palace ablaze and retreat. You did not want to leave the capital, and your army fought to the death for it. But the French army was relentless. You fall back through the burning streets of your own capital, the smoke stinging your eyes, the roar of the flames mixing with the sounds of battle. You are among the last to leave, a part of the rear guard, fighting a desperate delaying action. You have failed. The sacred city, the heart of your world for a century, is lost. The fall of Agojie is not the end of the war, but it is the end of the kingdom as you knew it. The great serpent of the Dahomean army has had its head severed. King Behanzin escapes into the wilderness with a small core of loyal followers, including the few hundred surviving female soldiers, and continues a guerrilla campaign for 2 more years. But it is a war of ghosts, a haunting of the land the French now control. You are one of those ghosts. Life becomes a desperate, nomadic existence. You are no longer part of a grand, disciplined army. You are a small band of fugitives, constantly on the move, sleeping in hidden forest camps, living off for aged roots and the occasional stolen goat. Your blue and white uniform is a tattered, mud-stained rag. Your musket, long out of ammunition, is now just a heavy stick. Your blade is still at your side, its edge nicked and worn, but it remains your last and most trusted friend. The bonds of sisterhood, forged in the palace and tempered in battle, are all you have left. You look at the faces around the small, smokeless fires at night. They are the same faces you have known for years, but they are etched with a profound weariness, a deep, hollowed-out grief that lies beneath the surface of your shared defiance. You have lost everything: your home, your king, your purpose. All you have is each other. The French, with their local allies, hunt you relentlessly. There are close calls, desperate skirmishes where you use your superior knowledge of the jungle to evade capture, leaving a few enemy soldiers dead before melting back into the trees. But you are slowly being worn down. Starvation is a constant threat. Sickness, for which you have no medicine, thins your ranks more effectively than any French bullet. This period of resistance is a source of intense national pride in modern-day Benin. It is a story of defiance against impossible odds. However, historians also acknowledge the grim reality. The guerrilla campaign, while heroic, could not change the ultimate outcome. The French colonial administration was methodically consolidating its control, building roads, establishing new centers of power, and co-opting them of Dahomey was being systematically dismantled. One day, the news finally reaches your hidden camp. The king, seeing the suffering of his people and the hopelessness of the fight, has surrendered. He has chosen to go into exile to save what remains of his population from further bloodshed. The war is over. A profound, crushing silence descends upon your small group. For years, your entire existence has been defined by your loyalty to the king. He was your husband, your father, your God. With his surrender, the central pillar of your world has crumbled to dust. You are now faced with a question you have never had to consider. What do you do now? There is no army to return to. The palace in Agojie is a blackened ruin, now serving as a French barracks. You are an outlaw, a relic of a defeated age. Some of the women choose to try and disappear, to melt back into the general population of the newly formed French colony. They will attempt to find distant relatives, to change their names, to forget they were ever soldiers. It is a dangerous path. They will be recognized by some, and to have been one of the king's elite warriors is now a mark of suspicion, not of honor. Others, including you, find this impossible. You have been a soldier for too long. You do not know how to be a farmer's wife. You do not know how to be anything else. The thought of bowing your head to a French colonial official is a poison in your throat. A handful of you, the last of the last, make a decision. You will not surrender. You will not try to hide. You will simply walk away, into the deep forest, into the parts of the land the French have not yet reached. You will live as the GBE2, the first hunters lived, off the land, beholden to no one. You say your goodbyes to the sisters who have chosen a different path. The partings are quiet, heavy with unspoken emotions. You have survived a world of violence together, and now you must face a new, quieter, but perhaps more difficult world alone. You turn your back on the ruins of your kingdom and walk north, into the unpaid wilderness. You are a warrior with no war to fight, a guard with no king to protect. The silence that follows the roar of a lifetime of battle is the most deafening sound you have ever heard. You must now learn how to live in it, how to find a new purpose in a world that has declared you obsolete. Years drift by as quiet and slow as the river you now live beside. You and a small band of sisters who chose this path have carved out a new life in the deep wilderness, far from the reach of the French tricolor flag. You have become what you once simulated. You are a huntress, living entirely off the land. Your skills, honed for the purpose of war, have been repurposed for survival. You track game with the same patience and stealth you once used to stalk enemy patrols. Your blade, once a weapon of war, is now a tool for clearing paths, building shelters, and butchering the animals you catch. The forest, which was once a place of ambush and tactical advantage, is now your larder, your sanctuary, your home. It is a quiet life of profound and sometimes aching peace. You are an anachronism, a living piece of a history that the new world is trying to forget. Occasionally, a trader or a hunter from the south will stumble upon your small, hidden settlement. They look at you with a mixture of fear and reverence. They see your scars, the proud, unbent way you carry yourself, and they know what you are. They call you the old ones of the king's last wives. They bring you news from the world you left behind. They tell you that the French have built a railway, a thin iron snake cutting through the heart of the old kingdom. They speak of new schools where children are taught to speak French and to forget the stories of the old gods. They tell you that some of your former sisters, who try to reintegrate, now live quiet lives as market women or weavers in the shadow of the new colonial administration. A few even serve as guards or informants for the French, a betrayal that stings you with a distant, weary sadness. The last of the Dahomey female soldiers lived on into the 20th century. A photograph taken around 1908 shows a group of surviving veterans, now elderly women, their faces a testament to the hard lives they had lived. The last known survivor, a woman named Agojie, reportedly passed away in 1979, living to be well over 100 years old. Her life spanned the entirety of this tumultuous history, from the glory days of the independent kingdom to the struggles of colonial rule and the dawn of a new, independent nation of Benin. These women became custodians of a lost history, their memories and stories the last living link to the world that had been destroyed. One day, a young woman finds her way to your village. She is the granddaughter of one of the sisters who chose to return to civilian life. She has grown up hearing the whispered, half-forgotten stories of the great women warriors, and she has sought you out. She wants to hear the truth. You are old now. Your hair is white, your movements are slow, but your eyes are still sharp. You sit with her by the fire as the sun sets, and for the first time in many, many years, you tell your story. You speak of the palace of no return, of the ringing of the bell, of the dance with thorns. You tell her of the song of the blade and the taming of the fire spitter. You describe the sisterhood of skulls, the great drums of war, the terrifying blur of your first battle. You tell her of the courage and the cruelty, the glory and the unbearable loss. You are not telling a story of victory. You know better than anyone that your kingdom was defeated, your army destroyed. But as you speak, you realize you are telling a different kind of story. It's a story about strength, about a society that dared to imagine women in a role that almost every other culture on earth had reserved for men. It is a story of discipline, of a sisterhood so powerful it could stare down death. It is a story of defiance in the face of insurmountable odds. The historical legacy of the Dahomey Amazons is complex and still debated. They are celebrated as symbols of female empowerment and anti-colonial resistance. They are also scrutinized as agents of a brutal, slave-trading state. Both are true. They were not simple heroes or villains. They were human beings, products of a specific, complex, and often violent time in history. And that is perhaps its most enduring power. As you finish your tale, the fire has burned down to glowing embers. The young woman looks at you, her eyes wide with a new understanding. She will go back to her village, and she will carry this story with her. She will tell it to her children, and they will tell it to theirs. Your life as a soldier is over. Your kingdom is gone. But you have passed the torch. You have ensured that the story will not die. It will live on, a story carried on the wind, a testament to a time when the king's deadliest warriors, the most feared soldiers in all of Africa, were women. Your story ends, but your legend has just begun. And so the quiet embers of the fire reflect in your eyes, and the sounds of the jungle night seem to grow a little softer, a little more distant. The story has found its gentle end, leaving behind only the softest echo in the quiet spaces of your mind. You can feel a pleasant heaviness beginning to settle in your limbs, a comfortable weight that invites you to let go completely. There is nothing left to follow now, nothing left to hold on to. There is only the feeling of support beneath you, and the gentle, rhythmic cadence of your own breathing, a quiet drumbeat leading you into the peaceful land of your own dreams. The tale has been told, and the night now offers its deep and restorative silence just for you. Our shared time in the story is complete. And if sleep has not yet found you, please don't worry. You can simply rest here in the quiet, or choose another path from my channel. Sleep peacefully.